Welcome to another broadcast of We're All Here Together. In this series, I don't have any notes. I show up with an idea-ish of maybe where we'll go, but this is also space for the audience, the studio audience, to bring whatever is present for them. And I'd also love for this to be a space where you can ground and connect to yourself. So just, a little room to breathe and check in with how you're feeling and where you're at. And a lot of the content I've been doing recently is about how you're already there though. You're already there though. And it's kind of a foreign concept in that you can discern that there are differences in circumstances and some are seemingly preferable. So when I'm sitting up here singing like, you hear though, what I'm talking about is a relationship or relationship to what is, that allows for you to make the most of it. So that is kind of what I showed up with idea-wise today, which is like, where are we going? This is kind of like my model of change. And unless someone in the audience has a better idea, I'll start running in that direction. But I encourage you to share what's there for you. And so this series, the Let's Be Real /Healed series and Applied Spirituality are all on youtube.com/The Shaylee Show. And please, oh my God, if you get anything from these, please subscribe, like, comment, help a girl out. So I know that I'm not just shouting into the void. I really appreciate the DMs. That's really helpful whenever you're like, wow, thanks, But you could do it on the content. I will also super appreciate that. So this is just my model. And part of my model, which I'm forever underlining when I'm up here, is like, I'm not your expert. You're your expert. If I'm any type of expert, I'm only an expert in supporting other people to be their own experts. And if you, I'm gonna put notes for myself and try a new way to do stuff. Cut back to that. So that, to me, that's sort of the destination. So when I'm working with someone, and when I'm thinking about healing or change, where you're going is yourself. You are coming into your personal experience in a way that you trust it. We are all uniquely guided. We are all uniquely situated. I think of it kind of like, if you simplify humans to plants or animals and imagine that those plants or animals naturally seek environments that support their thriving, you can see like humans similarly do that. But we've got so many ideas superimposed upon that process that we interrupt the impulses towards environments that would be supportive for us. And when we're looking at environments, you have the external world, which certainly matters. You have kind of like the mid-range environment, which is like what you ingest. So I'm taking in a ton of information from the room that I'm in, but I would also be taking in information from what I choose to read or expose myself to, or what I have conversationally. There's what I eat, that's information. There is also my inner environment. What do I think about? How do I think about it? Why do I think about it? All of that basically creates the soil or the environment where I either thrive or I don't. Oh, hey guys. So today I'm talking about basically people having the capacity to be their own expert, and my model for change, it came to me yesterday, I remember. Sorry, I forgot, I got it right backwards here. Bear with me. I wish there was a bear with me. All right. Hey. All right. So I think of it kind of like, this is what I'm teaching, self-mastery. So kind of like you know, like master E, like ish. And what that's built on is the idea that we are all uniquely guided, we are all uniquely situated, we all have what we need within ourselves to orient towards environments that are correct for us. We have like an inner guidance system. And I was talking about how our modern framework, our cultural conditioning, sits on top of that and basically is like, no, you don't know, you can't do that, no. And not only that, a lot of what our orientation is towards at a goal level, at a target level, is conditioned as well. So it's unnatural almost at the way that we're like what we're pursuing is learned as well. And so you have a unnatural target in some ways, and then an interruption of the system. What I perceive to be happening at a global, possibly galactic level is the human is no longer able to force themselves to pursue targets that are not personally meaningful. And there's this disruption that is actually in some ways helping us orient towards like what is real and what is true. And that brings me to like my preaching point, which is what I'm trying to get up here to talk about next, which is New Earth, like the new world, where people are participating in a society with the awareness of who they truly are, which is so exciting to think about. Can you imagine a bunch of people collaborating from a place of self-love, self-confidence, with communication tools that works, with the awareness of their emotions, with the possibilities of like all that could be, like, oh my God. So anyhow, my belief, like what I found, and I know that there is a ton of variation on the good ship Earth. There's a bunch of all kinds of stuff out here, which means I'm speaking to what's mine. If it's not you, like there's somebody else who can detail perhaps or better speak to your personal experience. Why I emphasize self-mastery, why I'm all about the individual, is that we're fucking different, man. We're all different. And yes, we can be grouped, like I'm saying, into certain types. Good morning. We can be grouped into, different, like, somewhat similar pools, and yet there is an individual within. Those are comprised of individuals. And the human design is a fantastic tool, and gene keys and astrology to really explore how people are different. So if you haven't looked at human design, I would, or you could hire me, and it is an astrologically based system that maps individuality, how a person, basically works, and works at a cognitive level, at a cognition level, at a orientation level, at a life processing level. I think of it kind of like, humans as sort of almost like Bitcoin mining machines, where life goes through it and like stuff happens and then it comes out a little bit different. So it talks about what happens, what kind of life you process, how you process it, how it's different. And that is my interpretation of it. There are much better, I don't know if they're better, let's say more grounded descriptions of that toolkit. But my point is, if you look at it, do it for yourself. If you look at it for yourself, also do it with somebody you know intimately, because you can start to see the differences. And so a lot of the ways that we self-judge and self-reject are because we're holding ourselves to a standard that we learned, an idea of who we could be or should be. And that judgment, that gap, I should be doing this, I should be operating like that. There's so much background judgment on the individual. Well, it's nuts. It is nuts. You won't even know. You don't even know the ways you're rejecting yourself. Really subtle things about how you should wake up, when you should wake up. Like, there is so much that, thank you, thanks girl. There's so much that you are constantly beating yourself up about, but you don't know that you're doing it because you've always done it. And that rejection takes you out of your power. So I started by saying, like, let's talk about the journey. Where are people going? Where am I taking them? This is my system. This is my belief system. I don't, like, take what you want from it. I think from my vantage point, the destination is really just like yourself. Like, you're coming into yourself in a way that you're like, this is what I think, this is what I feel, this is what I need, this is what I want. And you have a toolkit that you're not steamrolling the people around you, but you're also not letting them steamroll you, which means that you're, collaborating, but you're maintaining the integrity of your individual. And so I was talking about the individual as well. And then I started to say, well, human design's a great tool to do that because you can start to see ways you didn't know you could be different from other people. So I've done human design for about 100 people now. I've been doing it for myself since 2018. And you see that there are, I think of, we kind of have a dashboard. Each of us have a dashboard inside. The dashboards are different and they want to do and optimize different things. So when you know that, you don't judge yourself against it's basically freedom to be with your own experience because you're not looking outside thinking like, how am I supposed to do this? You're trusting of what you feel to do. Yes, there are learning curves. There are within the variations of human types, like groups of people, and again, same but different, who learn by failing. That's how I'm built. I come to the edge of stuff and I'm like, is this really the edge? Let me see. Oops, that was the edge there. And then I can put up a little sign here for my fellow travelers and say, this is the edge. You can go over it if you want, but this is about as far as you need to go. Knowing that that's how I learn allows for me to fuck up a lot because I'm not thinking like, oh, I fail. No, I learn. And so knowing that about myself, I also know that other people learn different ways. Some people want to take in a bunch of information with their head. I like to take it in with my body. Everybody is different. And when you know that you're different, you allow where you're different, which lets you focus on trusting yourself. It also gives you the freedom of not thinking other people should be different and or trying to understand them because you can't. So, let's see I wonder how long I've been out here already. I'm going to breathe too. So I came out here and I said, I want this to be a grounding practice as well. This is, time for us to be in our bodies. And that seems to be where my content is headed right now, my messaging anyhow. And I'll zoom out a little and get meta on it and say that I asked the field, God, angels, I call out angels, my team, whatever. I prayed, I asked, I said, like, look, I don't know what I'm supposed to be talking about right now. I feel like I got to do something, like SOS, help me out. And then I write my little letter to God, to all that is. And I'm like, I'll be here. You guys figure that out. And then my body will update, or my mind will update, or I'll have an experience that provokes a new kind of perspective or a different desire, and my question gets answered. And that is, from my vantage point, again, just talking out my model here, how humans work. We are a part of a field of information, and yet we've been taught to think that if we want information, we got to read it or ask somebody. But this is you're having a constant conversation with life all the time, and the more open you are to that, the more aware you are of yourself, what you're asking, how to read the signs, the easier it is to navigate. It's kind of like your GPS knows where you are, and it's talking to you. I get so excited. Okay, and so I was saying that part of what I was getting is like really emphasize this is where it's at. When you are in your mind, you are with abstractions of reality. That means they're not the thing. This is the book. when I think about the book, it's not the book anymore. It is my perception of the book. And my perception is influenced by all the books I've seen before, all the ways people have used that word, what I'm feeling about the color red today. As soon as I begin to think about the book, I've taken the book inside instead of outside, and I start to talk about the book, it is not the book anymore. And when we are interacting with the world around us through these different layers of thinking, through these different ideas of the self, ideas of humanity, ideas of, life, whatever, it's not it. And while it seems like culture, society, the conversation was about the outside, and now it's moving to the inside. And the inside, believe it or not, is as unreal as the outside, in that we kind of make it up as we go. As creators, as an expression of what is, we are adding to what is through our attention. And so you kind of like build out this inner experience, and there are aspects of it that are a little bit more solid than others, where other people have agreed things, and or it's not to say the unreality of it is the unreality of it is a paradox in some ways. And so I'll come back to that one. Thank you for that. My emphasis on the here is it's kind of the point where those things meet. So we've got the outside world and the inside world, and when you're thinking about them, they're not it. That's my point. As soon as you start to think about it, whether it's outside of you or inside of you, it's not it anymore. When you abstract it from reality, you take it out of its environment. So let's say I see this. I notice this marker on the floor. What I don't notice is this, that spilled. The inclination of the mind is to start to come up with the genesis story and understanding of this marker over here in isolation. Little did the mind perceive that it came from over here. And so I will be able to come up with a very convincing story and experience of how this marker came to be and why it's there. But it wouldn't be right. And when you buy into the stories that you've created, that's your reality, and you build from it. And that would be fine if you were using that power with love, imagination, an awareness of who you really are, an allowance of what you really want. But we usually use those skills from a place of fear, disempowerment, separation. And my story then is like, you can do that. You can do that for the outside. You can do that for the inside. But here is where it's at. Your experience is where it's at. And so I've kind of got this, I've been inspired to really encourage embodiment, because it's as easy if you're doing the healing journey and you're starting to explore spirituality and reality, and you're programming your conditioning, you start to run into the inside using the same thinking that you used on the outside. Like, it gets hairy in there, gets crazy in there, man. I got lost for a couple years. Like, it's like the quantum realm. So, tether yourself to something externally, and or remember that here is where you're trying to go. This is where you're trying to go. You're trying to be here as yourself in love and trust, so you can kind of like interact with life and experience being. Again, this is like the Gospel of Shaylee. Like, this is just kind of coming from, what this is what I found. This is what occurs to me. This is what comes through me. Is this right for you? I don't know. Only you know what's right for you. The question I have is, you talked about being programmed. How do I get out of the rut of feeling like each workday is a carbon copy of the other? I sometimes feel programmed. That's a great question. I will say, like, you are programmed. We're all programmed. We're programmed by language. We're programmed by the ideas of time. Our culture kind of programs us to think certain things are important, how to think about different things, how to talk about different stuff. So that sensation I will validate as like, yeah. And then as part of that, we get in kind of like these habits, these rituals, and check out. So just like you can drive somewhere or walk somewhere and forget, like, or be in a conversation and completely black out of, oh, and then you're somewhere. It's because your consciousness kind of like recedes from your experience. You go on autopilot. So to get out of programming, you kind of have to come into yourself, and it looks like breathing. It looks like just going a little bit slower and asking questions about, like, what do I feel right now? You know, are my lungs tense? And for you, Kevin, I think being gentle with yourself, because I think in some ways you became scared of your body. So allowing you to be very gentle and approach presence curiously or playfully rather than push yourself into it. So kind of like, what happens if I look at the colors in the room? What would it be like if I felt the way my socks feel? If I really looked at this person and paid attention to them, what would that be like? So you start to bring yourself into your experience a little bit more. And when you're there, you can kind of see like new turns, new choices. And then you start to break apart like the world that's kind of crusted around your, like the routes you usually run. And then rather than go to the same coffee shop, rather than drive the same way, rather than have the same thing to eat, you're present enough to listen to yourself, to hear or feel an impulse. It's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go over there. I don't know what's over there, but I think I'm going to go over there. And then it starts to like, I don't remember where you live. I don't know if I know. I think I do know the area, but like growing up in Pennsylvania, sometimes the ice would freeze on the windshield, and you like, it was just a solid sheet of ice. When you start to pay attention, you can kind of like find, and you're stuck in a wall of programming or routine or habit. You can kind of find, Ohio, that's right, I thought it was up around where I was. You can like kind of clink. You just need to find like one break in the ice will start to like move it apart. And that's simplified. I know some ice is a real bitch, but if we're using our imagination, allowing that to be true, it's kind of like just a little, like just one new choice sometimes can like really break it up and give you perspective away from, this must be my move today, perspective away from the ice to really see like, oh, because when you're in it, you can't see it. So I think I'd start by validating the way that you feel and appreciating that you have that perception, that you can see it. And then again, pulling yourself into your experience a little bit more in whatever way feels comfortable or natural or not threatening or non-pushy, and start to look where there are like different impulses to perhaps try something different or new. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be anything big or crazy. It could be as simple as when you're having a conversation with someone, you're present enough to, rather than say like what you usually say, like what you really feel at that moment. One of the most helpful things for me in kind of like bringing what I felt and knew to be true to like my habits, my physical experience, was saying the weirdest shit that came to me. And it's not that I was like, let me look for weird things to say. It was just more like, let me be honest about the experience that I'm having. So if someone at the gym asked how my weekend was, I'd say like, well, I've been integrating these different aspects of my consciousness. It was a little overwhelming, so I took it pretty easy, rather than say like, oh, walked around, rather than say what I think is acceptable or what I thought was acceptable, I said what was real and true to me. And that helped me kind of bring those pieces together. So I don't want these sessions to be very long, so I'm going to start wrapping up. Does anybody have any other questions, thoughts, feelings before we go today? I appreciate that. No, Kevin. Thank you. All right. Any feedback, like I said, on these broadcasts or any of the other series I'm running right now would be super helpful. I am working on ripping the audio with all my hand motions today. I'm ripping the audio off the YouTube videos and gonna make something of them. If you're interested, hey girl, if you're interested in receiving any of that, just watch my story or send me a note. Good, I'm glad to hear. Send me a note and I will make sure you get a copy. A lot of the stuff I've written, it'll likely go on medium.com/Shaylee Edwards, where I already have a bunch of stuff published, or I'm gonna try to put it on my website, haveabook.com. Okay, you guys have a great day. Thank you.